Okay, Chair Malari, are you ready to begin?
I am, thank you.
Okay.
I will call the Planning Commission meeting of October 26, 2023 to order. Director Cooper, looks like we have a little introduction.
We do. Thank you, Chair Malari. We're really proud to announce we have a new member on our Planning Commission. We have DeAndre Lindsay, and he is a student youth representative on our Planning Commission. Unfortunately, he's not allowed to vote, but we're really looking forward to seeing what he has to say. We're really excited about it. DeAndre is really impressive. He is a senior at American Canyon High School. He's the vice president of the speech and debate team and represented American Canyon at the California State Speech Finals. After graduating school, DeAndre is going to pursue a degree in physics and astrophysics.
Ooh.
So he's primed and ready, and we're really excited to have him part of the commission.
Well, thank you, and welcome, DeAndre. Yes. All right, I'd like you all to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And in honor of DeAndre's first Planning Commission, I'd like you to lead it.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Okay, Nicole, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner, excuse me, Commissioner Altman is not here. Commissioner Goff
Present.
and Commissioner Mohammed,
Present.
Youth Commissioner Lindsay,
Present.
Vice Chair Cruz,
Present.
and Chair Malari.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, I will go ahead and open up public comment. This time is reserved for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. It's recommended that the speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes and is requested to no comment be made during the period on any items that are on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission on items on the agenda should fill out a comment form or also address us prior to the meeting. If you are on the phone, please raise your hand and a button and or *9 on the phone, and when the item is called. Nicole, may I open up public comment, please?
Yes, if you have comments on anything that is not on the agenda, please raise your hand now. Hold on just 1 second. We do not have any public comment for non-agendized items.
Thank you. Any in the room? We have one public comment.
First of all, I want to thank DeAndre for being here. Since you're in a debating team, I think maybe you ought to be on city council instead. And then I just have a quick question, and I don't know if it's something you can address, but I was wondering, can you update me on what's going on with Dr. Singh's property on Poco and Melvin Road?
Beth, I can answer that. We don't currently have an application for that property.
Well, I'll just sit down now. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Any other public comment? Oh, okay. All right.
To make sure that the design committee, whoever does the designing, does a better job of designing our buildings in the city. It seems like when there's a new development, it should kind of coincide with the rest of the city. And those new apartments, I think, stick out like a sore thumb, to put it bluntly. But I don't know who designed that, but it's just not with the rest of the city. So whoever does the designing, I think they should make sure that it blends. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. All right, speak once, twice. Last call for public comment. I will go ahead and close public comment. Director Cooper, any agenda changes?
I have no other, no agenda changes for you tonight.
Moving right along then. Looking into the consent calendar, the recommendation is to approve the minutes of our, August 24th, 2023 minutes from the Planning Commission meeting.
I recommend that we approve the minutes of the August 24th, 2023 meeting.
A second.
All right, roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Aye.
Vice Chair Cruz,
Aye.
Chair Malari.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to public hearing. The first one is the PG&E monopole design permit. Commissioners, staff, and members of the public, on the advice of the city attorney, I have established a conflict of interest and with respect to this public hearing of item number 1. So I will go ahead and recuse myself for this matter and remove myself until I'm called back. I will go ahead and hand it off to Chair Cruz.
Thank you very much. All right, public hearings. We'll wait till Chair Crystal walks out. Okay, this is in regards to the PG&E monopole design permit, and I will hand it over to the applicant or staff.
Good evening, Vice Chair Cruz, members of the Planning Commission, and members of the public. My name is William. I'm with the Planning Division. I'm very happy to be here today to give a presentation on the PG&E monopole design permit. So let's start off with a vicinity map, a location map of the site. The site is at 500 Boone Drive, which is marked in the yellow here on the left. So this is a fairly large site at the end of Devlin Boone Drive, right at the city limits, actually. So if you're going down Devlin Road, you'll see the IKEA Distribution Center, and then the Amazon Distribution Center, and then the Biagi Brothers warehouse. And then at the very end, that's where the PG&E Center is. I have some planning and zoning info as well as the project description. So the site is located in the Napa County Airport Industrial Area Specific Plan, and within the specific plan, it's in the business park zone. The site is 24.5 acres, but today we're talking specifically about a 60-foot tall telecom monopole. The pole will be set back approximately 800 feet from the property line away from Boone Drive, and it is proposed as a private use for PG&E that's not commercial. The monopole is an accessory use to the approved PG&E Regional Center that the Planning Commission approved in September of 2021. And the reason for the pole is this telecommunications tower is going to help PG&E capture real-time data in case of an emergency. So here's the site plan of the PG&E site. There are 3 buildings, the operations building in the east of the site, and then there's the logistics and fleet building. The monopole is right behind the operations building, and it's going to be on a 120 square foot pad, approximately 3 foot wide in diameter. And I have these, this site plan is provided by the applicant, and I have these 3 positions here, A, B, and C. And I have some photo simulations of how the site looks from those positions. So here's the first one from position A, which is right at the knuckle of Boone Drive and Devlin Road. So this is before you enter the site, and that's how the monopole would appear from that position facing west. The second one is right at the entry of the site, and that's how the operations building and the monopole behind the building would look. And then the last one we have is from the northeast corner facing southwest. That's the pretty close to the property line of the site and viewing southwest, and that's how the monopole will look. So even though it was a monopole, there were some specific issues that we had to resolve with the applicant, and I'm very happy to say that all of these issues were resolved during the application review phase or through an agreed upon condition of approval. So the first one was the height. Although the zone allows for heights up to 100 feet due to a resolution in 2015, we had to make sure that the height of the pole was compliant with the FAA as well as the Napa County Airport Land Use Commission. And the applicant has went out and actually got a consistency determination from both the FAA as well as the Napa County ALUC. And those documents are in the packet. The second is the, which I mentioned before, was the use and of the tower itself. The applicant has explained that this is private use just for PG&E, and it will not be something for the next commercial carrier such as AT&T or Verizon and something like that. This is in a condition of approval, and they've agreed that this will only be for private use of PG&E with some use of their commercial partners. Next, we have the Spectrum Act. This is actually a federal Commission of Communications. This is a federal act that allows existing monopoles to be modified if it does not substantially change the physical dimensions. So this means that if we have a pole that's approved and 2 to 3 years later they want to modify it, they can go straight to building permit. It supersedes local authority. So because of that act, we were really concerned about like what this pole can become. But because the applicant has agreed through a condition of approval that they will only use this for PG&E, they will, if this project does become a commercial project, they will bring this project back to the Planning Commission for review for further entitlement. Next, we even talked about emergency power. So this site was, the monopole is to monitor if there's an emergency, but what if the monopole loses power? So the applicant has informed us that the whole site has an emergency backup generator. So it will sustain an emergency. And lastly, radio frequency exposure. This is an unmanned site, and the applicant has provided a document that explains that this site has radio frequency levels that are compliant with FCC standards. So it's safe for radio frequencies. The one thing that we couldn't capture before we published the staff report is that the monopole in the renderings appear to be a darker pole. So one of the things that we looked for is that if it was a lighter pole, then it's less visual impact compared to like a black pole. So we request the Planning Commission to add a condition that says the applicant will provide a monopole that's painted light gray. And that's something that we've mentioned to the applicant, and they are agreeable with that added condition. Public outreach, we did our initial neighborhood letter in June 22nd, when I think about 2 weeks after we received the project. That went out along with the Gov delivery recipients, about 3,800 recipients through our email list. Then we had our official notices sent out in September. And then we had our staff report published last Friday, and we had a reminder yesterday for the public outreach. We've received no comments for this project, so no news for there. Lastly, we have the staff recommendation as well as CEQA. I'll talk about CEQA first. So California Environmental Quality Act. This project is exempt through Section 15301, which is for existing structures and existing sites. So because the PG&E site is already approved, this qualifies. And then 15303E for small structures. Because the pad for this monopole is less than 2,500 square feet, it's actually 120 square feet, it would comply for under both of those sections. And with that, the staff's recommendation is to approve the monopole design permit with an additional condition of approval that requires the applicant to paint the monopole light gray. That's all that I have. The applicant is here, and I'll be here if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, William. At this time, I'd like to welcome the applicant, PG&E, to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Boris Litucci. I'm a portfolio manager with Pacific Gas and Electric. Is responsible for this project. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, members of the public. Just to reiterate what the planning department responded and presented today, this is our hopefully final application for the new PG&E Regional Center that is being built at 500 Boone Drive. As a reminder, this project was approved in September of 2021, and we're getting close to complete our construction by the end of this year, with the opening sometime in April, May next year. And we've been in this application since April of this year with presenting all the information and working diligently with the planning department, going through a number of the questions and, of course, recommendations. FAA approval. Last month we went to the Land Use Commission for the Napa County and Airport. So we passed all the hurdles, and again, happy to answer any questions. Members of the public or commissioners, please.
Great, thank you, Boris.
I have project architect, Mr. Richard Price, with us, and of course, government affairs representative, PG&E, Mark Van Gorder. If you have any questions, so please, we'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please.
This seemed like the right time to at least introduce myself. My name is Mark Van Gorder. I lived in Napa since 1975. I was on the Planning Commission in Napa for a few years before City Council, and I just, I don't know that Napa has a youth planning commissioner, so that's super cool, and I'm very excited for your future. It sounds really interesting, but I'm going to have to talk to our council members up there and find out if they do that. But I don't get to planning commissions very often, usually city council members, county supervisors, that sort of thing. I'll be one of the employees that's working down at the new facility once it's constructed. I know you've all had a lot of input on that, and thank you, and thank staff for your time. But again, the company is looking forward to being your new neighbors. My role in the community is working with local government and educational and nonprofit partnerships. And so I can tell you that there's a lot of excitement from a lot of employees. They're looking forward to not only moving down here to the new regional center, but I think really participating and getting involved in the community. So that being said, I think it might be appropriate then, Brent, if I could leave these cards with you for the commissioners in case you ever want to get in touch with me.
Great, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else from PG&E who would like to speak? No? Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up to public comment.
Is there anybody in person that would like to speak on this item?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Leon Garcia. I'm here today as a member of the public, not as an elected official, for this hearing and the other item on the agenda as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to comment on this item? Please raise your hand at this time. Going once, twice. There's no additional public comment.
At this time, I'd like to close public comment and now open it up to the commissioners for discussion. Commissioners. There being none, I would like to,
I'll jump in.
Commissioner Goff.
Yeah, first off, I do want to extend a thank you for PG&E. I remember when we passed all the work on the original site, one of the conditions was the landscaping around the sign down here. And driving by that every single day, fantastic job. Thank you. Is there a normal color for monopoles? I know our request is going to be light gray. I was just wondering if there was some type of, no, it all depends on whatever somebody wants. Okay.
Commissioner Goff, just so you know, the idea with the light gray is when you look at it from a distance, it blends into the sky, so it's less obvious.
Yeah, I understood that. I was just wondering if there was a normal color. Just because of the rendition, I thought maybe that was the normal color. It's going to sit pretty closely behind a building. What is the height of the building? Do we know? The pole itself is 60 feet, correct? Yes.
Hi, this is William again. I think it's about 30 feet.
30, so it's going to cover pretty much half of the tower. Okay, of the
But it'll
pole
still be
itself.
set back from the property line.
Okay. That was all my curiosity. Everything else is perfectly fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Goff. Any other comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Mohammed? Commissioner DeAndre? No? All right. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, approving a design permit for the development of a private, non-commercial 60-foot tall monopole for the PG&E Telecommunications at 500 Boone Drive. This is APN 057-360-002, file number PL 23-0011.
With the added condition, please.
With the added condition, thank you,
Sorry.
that the pole be a light gray in color.
Thank you.
I second.
Roll call, Nicole.
Yes, Commissioner Altman is absent. Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Aye.
Vice Chair Cruz,
Aye.
and Chair Malari has abstained.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We look forward to being your new neighbors and part of the community.
Thanks once again.
All right, moving along to the Paleo Watson Lane Annexation Project.
All right, thank you, Chair Malari, Planning Commission, and members of the public. I'm Brent Cooper, Community Development Director, and very pleased to present to you the Paoli Watson Annexation Project. There are a lot of components to this, so I have a little lengthier presentation than normal. I'm really happy today. We have Jesse Vorenberg from Rincon Consultants. Rincon prepared the environmental impact report for this. And then also we have Leo Mina, also with Rincon online and available for questions. And then we also are very happy to have our Public Works Director, Erica Mon-Smithies, with us tonight. So we have a really great team here. We kind of have a number of things that we'll be talking about. You can see there on the agenda. I won't read them to you. You can take a look at that. We have a small and mighty team from the staff here working on this project. The city manager is leading this because of its importance. The city attorney has also been very critical in helping with guidance as we go through the process and talk about all these different components. Nicole Hall has been holding everything together and doing a great job and keeping us on track and on time and everything where it needs to be at the right time. And then also we have a consultant as well that's assisted with keeping everything running as well, and particularly through the environmental review and all the comments and keeping track of that and helping along, Sean Kennings. The project itself has a programmatic environmental impact report. This is a variety of environmental impact report that looks at the project and contemplates its development and assigns mitigation measures to address that. The area that we're looking at annexing to the city is 83 acres. It's on the northeast corner of American Canyon, and it's within what's known as our sphere of influence, which is a peculiar term that's brought to us from the state through annexation law. And it refers to property that would be logical to add into the city's corporate limits at some point in the future. Another important feature that's a very high priority to the City Council is extending Newell Drive. There is an objective that's very important for circulation purposes to have a connection in addition to Highway 29 along the east side of the city, and that's served by Newell. The Watson Ranch project will construct a very large segment of Newell where it ends today over by the Newell open space, and the idea is this project, through its entitlements, would help pay for extending Newell Drive from where it ends in Watson Ranch all the way over to Highway 29 at Green Island Road and Paoli Loop. In order to accomplish the annexation, it's necessary to update the general plan and assign what's called pre-zoning. That's just like regular zoning, but it's zoning that you do before the property is in the city limits. And so that's another requirement in order to accomplish the annexation process. The annexation itself is approved by the local agency formation commission. It's not the city that does that. It's another agency. Every county in California has a local agency formation commission, and they get their authority from the state of California. And so there's a whole host of regulations that they have that they will be evaluating us for as we bring this to them to consider. Just looking at the property itself, the northern area that's annexed is intended for industrial development, hotel, and commercial. And then the property around Watson Lane is planned for estate residential. Also wanted to say too, this project really was kicked off in 2017. At the time we had an aggressive 2-year schedule to accomplish everything, but I think as we find when you start working on a complex project, it's hard to accomplish in a short amount of time. It really needs and deserves to be evaluated in a variety of different potential methodologies, and also understanding the property and the people and the environment that we face. There's just a whole lot to talk about and think about. So it's been about 6 years, a little more than that, but here we are today, and hopefully we have answers. But that's the reason for having a public hearing. There's always an opportunity for more information to come to light. I've kind of already gone over the geography here. One of the important things about this property that's relevant for annexation is it's surrounded by American Canyon on 3 sides. So on the west there, the south, and the east. So the city sort of surrounds this property and kind of hugs it on 3 sides. And what that means in terms of annexation is when you have a city surrounding property, the annexation rules suggest that this might be a good place to add into the city for the purposes of a logical city boundary. I don't know if you look at other places outside of California and you look at a map, it's just, the boundaries are not logical whatsoever. In California, there is an effort to have more regular boundaries. And the reason for that is if somebody has their house on fire, it's easy for the district to know where to go. If you've got a little patchwork here or there or there or there, it can be complicated sometimes to know which agency is supposed to respond. But if you have a nice cohesive surrounding area, then it just makes service delivery easier. That also extends to pipelines, water lines, utilities, police. All of those things is just simpler and more logical when you have regular city boundaries. The property notably is also affected by the Napa Airport. The Napa Airport has its own land use plan, and the ring of influence that's relevant here, which you can see on the red line there, is something called Zone D. And under the Napa Airport land use plan, properties on the upside of the Zone D are considered to have a noise annoyance from from aircraft flying overhead. And so it's important and relevant to the way this project is evaluated. To the north of here, where we have listed unincorporated Napa County, today the Napa County is entertaining an application for industrial development on that property. It's known as the Hess Laird property. So I mentioned the island in 9 terms. A question is, this northern part here with the star is the area that's designated under our plan for industrial, and then all the rest of it there is considered for residential estate. Over the years, we've talked to various residents on Watson Lane, and they have a wonderful, cohesive community there. And just as recently as yesterday, we got communication saying, we'd rather the city not annex us. We're just happy with the way we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a wonderful neighborhood. Unfortunately, because the city would surround this, should we annex the northern part on 4 sides, it would create a complete island. And LAFCO law doesn't permit that. So it's just one of those things. It has to come along with it if the annexation is to move forward at all. I've mentioned that Newell Drive is part of the project, helping to fund its extension. There are a couple of overcrossings which are expensive to construct. One would be an overcrossing over the railroad that goes through the property, and then there would also be another crossing over the North Slough. Newell Drive was considered in the environmental impact report in a couple of different ways. One of them evaluated what would the environment be like if instead of building an overcrossing over the railroad, it was built at grade. And you can see an at-grade crossing, of course, here at American Canyon Road and Highway 29. So we're all very familiar with that. So that's evaluated in the environmental impact report. A second one, and much more controversial, is alternative 4. And this one would say, what if we didn't cross the railroad at all? What if we didn't extend Newell Drive north? Well, then the only really way to accomplish a connector would be to divert cars and traffic down Watson Lane. And as you can see here, and as we've heard from various people who live in the neighborhood, it would be a big change to the way in which the road is built and the traffic and the like. Overall, the project mentioned it's programmatic, so it's contemplating development in the future. The build-out is just under 500,000 square feet of commercial, just under 700,000 square feet of industrial, and just under 200,000 square feet of visitor and hotel. So those are kind of the boundaries that this is evaluating in the, we call the EIR. kind of walk you through some of the land use changes that's proposed for the general plan, and then I'll move on to the zoning. So what I've got up here is the general plan. On the left-hand side, we have what's existing today, and on the right-hand side, this is what's being proposed through the project. So on the left-hand side, the northern part of it is planned for agriculture. And then on Watson Lane itself and Paoli, there's a property there on Paoli Loop, is estate residential. According to LAFCO law, this is the annexation law that we must comply with, cities may not annex property that's planned for agriculture. And the reason for that is one of the purposes for the state's annexation laws is to prevent sprawl. So before there were annexation laws, what would happen is cities would annex enormous areas of farmland and then it would be in the city limits. And then over time, they would just gobble it up with subdivisions and sprawl. And so today, that's not possible through annexation law. In order to accomplish an annexation, you have to identify what the purpose is and then evaluate that. And there's a very, very strict criteria to decide whether or not the plan that's being proposed is valid and feasible. And so just by virtue of the city designating this agriculture, perhaps the authors of the plan didn't know this, you wouldn't be able to annex it into the city. So that being said, the proposal for the northern part of it is industrial. And once again, this provides land value and development potential that can help fund extending Newell. So there's a connection there and a reason. The balance of the property is residential estate. So just kind of highlighting here, the northern part from agriculture to industrial, the other part is from agriculture to residential estate. Looking at the existing and proposed pre-zoning, I mentioned pre-zoning is zoning that's just not in the city. And so you can see on the left-hand side here, there is virtually no zoning. It just hasn't been done yet. On the right-hand side is what's being proposed, and kind of walk you through. On the right-hand here in the upper corner, the town center, that is a part of the annexation area that is not in the city. That actually received pre-zoning all the way back in 2008 through an initiative that pre-zoned the Watson Ranch area. And this was kind of part of that initiative. So that already has zoning on it. The property owners are happy with that, and so there's no change proposed. On the left-hand side here, you can see that there's some area referred to as light industrial. That property actually is already in the city, so we're not pre-zoning it. It's just shown there because it's adjacent to the annexation area. But that's existing zoning in the city. So it kind of gives you an idea of here what's happening. We do have one area that's part of this project that's in the city that would be rezoned. And so I've got it highlighted there in pink. And this is property largely, but not altogether, between Paoli Loop and the highway. It's right adjacent to the annexation area. It's under the same ownership as the annexation area. And so it's been sort of changed from light industrial to Paoli light industrial with a commercial overlay. And so that's just there to kind of help integrate the two. It's likely that Paoli Loop itself will need to be realigned. So having the zoning the same on both sides of the road is going to make that easier. You might wonder why in this northern area here we have two different zoning categories. And the reason is it's naturally split by the North Slough. So on the east side of the North Slough, it's light industrial. And so that's pretty self-explanatory. We have other areas in the city that are light industrial. It's very similar to that. On the west side of the North Slough, this is more of the confluence of Highway 29 and Newell. And so it has higher visibility from a lot of people in their automobiles and traffic. And so there is an opportunity there for more commercial development. And so light industrial is allowed throughout both sides of this property, but commercial property is an opportunity there on the west side just because of its highly visible and more valuable location. So I want to take a few slides here and talk about the relevance of Zone D and residential estate. So the areas that's proposed for residential estate are areas now where there have been houses and people have lived there for generations. After that area was built, then Napa Airport created its plan. And so the neighborhood was first, and the Napa Airport plan came later. And when the plan came, at some point, it designated this area within Zone D, which suggests that housing is incompatible. So there's a conflict because you have a plan that says housing is incompatible in an established neighborhood where people are perfectly happy. So that kind of becomes our problem, and I'll walk you through why. So the residents that we've talked to, and even as recently as yesterday, say they want to maintain their unique and peaceful neighborhood. And so consistent with that, because we've been talking to people for 6 years, the idea is to maintain as much as we can the status quo. So people are happy with their neighborhood. We don't want to come in there and mess it up. We did get feedback from the Napa County Public Works Department about the plan. And so they noted that this area is in Zone D. Housing is incompatible, according to their plan. And their suggestion was to rezone it industrial or multifamily. And so that was their proposal. And you can see it in the EIR. It's all there, and we've answered it. And then it's also relevant because our plan, on its way before it gets to LAFCO, has to go through the Airport Land Use Commission, which is staffed by the folks that suggested that the zoning should be industrial multifamily. So we kind of have a bit of a conflict here. I wanted to just show you a little picture of the neighborhood from Google Earth. It's a lovely neighborhood. You can see that you have a very, very loose urban form. You have people with their houses. Obviously, they have active lives. They have structures there that support that. They're happy the way it is. I didn't go through and identify all the parcel sizes, but you can see that there's kind of a collection. We have a few that are 1 acre, some are 1.2, 2.1. The largest parcel is the Dunlaps at 10.4. The smallest is 1 acre. And so you have a real range there. The way the county addresses the conflict between the Airport Land Use Commission and how do you address administering land use here is they zoned this property agriculture watershed. An agriculture watershed has a minimum parcel size of 10 acres. And so as you can see, there's only one parcel that meets that standard. All the rest are less than that. So de facto, it's not possible to subdivide any of these properties because they're all less size than what's permissible. But you can really see that this is just a lovely neighborhood, and it's sort of rural in nature. If you look at Watson Lane, you can see it's a very narrow street. There's no sidewalks. There's drainage ditches on the side, overhead utility poles. It has trees. It's really a lovely rural country road as we're heading east there towards the railroad tracks. If you turn around and look back where you came from, you can just see that it's just a narrow, lovely road. And so if you think about that, how does that relate to what was suggested by the county? So the first principle I wanted to bring to the Planning Commission, and this is where Bill Ross is really helpful in kind of focusing what are we all here to do. The city is the land use authority for property in the city limits, not the county. So this property, should it be annexed, it would be under the authority of the city. So the city needs to decide what the zoning is best for this area, considering the needs and inputs from the stakeholders and state law, land use law, environmental rules, LAFCO law. ALUC is a stakeholder. There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle that somehow needs to come together into a logical, rational recommendation. And so the city is the deciding of this, not the county. Residents, I think we all know, they're the ones who are most directly affected by this. They want a peaceful and unique neighborhood. As I mentioned, the county zoning requires a 10-acre minimum lot size, and there's only one lot that meets that standard. Industrial zoning would introduce an incompatible use to the neighborhood. If you think about what you just saw in the Google verse, and you start thinking about intermixing industrial with people's unique and peaceful living, it's an incompatible use. The Napa Airport compatibility plan today does not allow residential. So, I don't know, to staff, it makes no sense to even consider multifamily because that is inconsistent with the land use airport compatibility plan. So not only is it inconsistent with the way the residential neighborhood is today, it's inconsistent with the land use plan. So that one's an easy one to scratch off the list. If we were to consider industrial or multifamily uses, and it isn't just the county that has suggested industrial uses in the neighborhood, but it would require expensive upgrades to utilities and to Watson Lane. If you remember that road, can you imagine industrial trucks on that road? Well, they won't be able to make the turns. The section, which Eric could talk about, that's the depth that you build an industrial road to withstand the weight. Just think about Green Island Road. That was inherited by us from the county. It was a rural road at the time, and it's reverting to nature. So if this were to be used for industrial traffic, well, you'd soon see that it would look an awful lot like Green Island Road, and that's not a good thing. As I'd mentioned, development pays for road improvements. So if we were to apply that principle to allowing industrial uses in Watson Lane, well, then the applicants for those projects would pay to upgrade Watson Lane. But the neighbors don't want Watson Lane upgraded. Furthermore, it's very expensive, and it's unlikely that there's any single project that could afford to pay to upgrade Watson Lane. So both of those options, I think, are very difficult from very practical, real-world perspectives. Looking at things a little further, a little deeper, one of the things that hasn't come up in discussions, I haven't heard, and maybe we will tonight, residents on Watson Lane haven't said to staff that they're very unhappy with the 10-acre minimum parcel. This is a limitation that doesn't allow existing parcels to be subdivided. No one has said that's a concern. So that's, I don't know, that's in there somewhere in the mix. There is also, from the other side of the perspective, I haven't seen any evidence from Napa County that suggests that the residents and the homes on Watson Lane has hindered the Napa Airport in any meaningful way whatsoever. So the plan may suggest that the D zone is a noise annoyance, but as far as I know, and I've been heard, no one has suggested to me or provided me any information that suggests that this incidence and location of homes has caused any harm to Napa Airport. One of the other requirements with state law, I'd mentioned you can't annex agricultural land. LAFCO requires, I mentioned, urban zoning for the property, for land use. So a 1-acre parcel, which is what's proposed under residential estate, is really the lowest density that you can argue is urban. Clearly, a 10-acre ag watershed is not an urban land use. So one of the things that's also been suggested in among all the conversations is, why don't you just zone it the way we do? Well, we can't. 10 acres is not an urban, that is not an urban zoning. We do not have that, even if we wanted to. We don't have that because LAFCO would suggest you're just annexing land and you're creating sprawl. And so the other issue that it also affects is equity among neighbors. If you think about it, you have some neighbors that have a 1 acre parcel and 2, 5, 10. There should be equity. If I own property that has the same zoning as my neighbor, why can't I develop it like my neighbor? Same zoning, same rules. And there are reasons sometimes why you can't do that or shouldn't do that, but you don't start there. You start with, how do we craft zoning so that it's fair for everybody who lives within the same zoning district? And so allocating a 1 acre lot, which is, I believe, the smallest parcel size in the neighborhood, would be a way of everybody enjoying their property equally. We've also had suggestions that, well, I'd like to change my property to industrial. And there is nothing here that would suggest that after it's in the city, someone can always apply to change the zoning. None of this is ever, once it's done, it's not written in stone. It could be changed later on, but it will be evaluated. And there are a lot of things in which are important and necessary to think about when we're changing zoning. So this isn't, the last word, but it is a way of being able to address the conditions that we have today. And then finally, the Napa Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan itself is being updated. And so the rules that are in place today will likely change. And I've been invited to attend a committee at the county as one of the stakeholders that's jurisdiction that's affected by it. And I'm aware that there is a proposal. Of course, you never know what it will be when it's done, but for the time being, they are proposing some changes. We'll see what happens. So the rules that are in place today, even the county acknowledges, are outdated. And so it would seem to me that a fair-minded person, perhaps on the Airport Land Use Commission, might take all of these things into consideration. So all that being said, staff is still proposing residential estate in Watson Ranch, but wanted to offer a compromise to acknowledge the way the plan reads today and honor it, but not do it in a manner that fundamentally changes the neighborhood for the people who live there and assign land uses that are, I'll say, aspirational or infeasible. And so this is a kind of a compromise that we would suggest and bring forward if the Planning Commission thought this was a good idea and ultimately the City Council. And so this would say that any new subdivision that creates additional lots within the residential estate district in Watson Ranch would be subject to review by the Napa Airport Land Use Commission before final action by the city. So the Napa Airport Land Use Commission is advisory. It's not the final word. So if they listen to reason, perhaps they might see way to agree. But if for some reason they do not, then the city has authority to overrule a decision of the Airport Land Use Commission. So we're not just proposing something without just saying, I know, here's your rules, we read it, we know, we're inconsistent, we get it, here you go. Here is something that allows the Airport Land Use Commission to have some input. And maybe through that input, there's something valuable that we need to know and hear that plays into decision making. So I think it's a way of being able to help compromise in a manner that I think is most reasonable. There are a variety of situations where this rule would not apply. And so sometimes there's a subdivision that doesn't create a residential lot. Sometimes there are landscape lots. Sometimes there are lot line adjustments, moving parcel lines around. It doesn't create a new lot. Somebody may amend the zoning. Perhaps the zoning gets amended on Watson Lane. So if there's property that has zoning other than residential estate, this wouldn't apply. There is state law. There are a variety of state laws. State is cooking up new laws all the time. There are dozens every year. And so these laws, many of them supersede local authority. An obvious one is the accessory dwelling unit law. There are new regulations now that the state would impose on local jurisdictions that allow subdivisions for ADUs. There is SB 9 that allows for parcel subdivisions where there is no discretion on part of the city. There's a variety of state laws that allow subdivisions that the city has no authority to prevent, assuming they meet all the requirements. So just to keep that straight with everybody, there are exceptions to what might be a reason to go to the Airport Land Use Commission. And then finally, because we're aware that the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan is being amended, it's possible that the D zone could move north. And so in the event that happens, properties on Watson Lane or Paley not located in compatibility zone D would not be subject to this. So we're trying to look, forward and present and give input for what staff feels, this is up to the Planning Commission to see if you agree, is the most feasible way of satisfying as many of the different rules and things that are important. So okay, I've kind of already covered this. City can overrule the Airport Land Use Commission by a 4/5 vote. So there really isn't any significant change to the way the city would process a subdivision. It just adds in another organization that provides input. And now I want to turn it over to Jesse, and because you're probably tired of hearing me anyway, who will talk about the environmental impact report. So thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jesse Vorenberg. I'm an environmental planner with Rincon Consultants. Just one note on Brent was just mentioning the changing regulatory landscape under the state, and they passed 55 new housing bills this legislative session alone. So it's a quick shifting landscape. So anyway, so Rincon Consultants, we prepared the environmental impact report under CEQA for the project that Brent just outlined. So you probably all know CEQA applies to projects that require discretionary approval from a local lead agency. Early on, the city determined that a program EIR would be necessary to evaluate the environmental impacts of this project. CEQA offers a public disclosure and input process through planning commission hearings like this, and moments for public to weigh in on projects through comment letters. The general goal of the CEQA process is to minimize, reduce, or avoid environmental impacts. Specifically for a project like this, where we're looking at a programmatic EIR, we're looking at a worst case scenario. So what's the most that could be built on a specific area of the annexation site? So we're really looking at that worst case scenario. What if it was built out to the maximum potential? And when I say worst case, I don't mean like that's bad, just could have the greatest environmental impact. And then it concludes with adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program to reduce impacts and make sure all mitigation is implemented. Take the next slide, please. Unless I'm doing that.
Sorry, you gotta.
Okay, I got it.
Enter or that.
Anyway, so the CEQA process is fairly lengthy. We started back in September 2022, and now we're all the way at the tail end with this Planning Commission hearing. So, over a year since we started the environmental review process. The environmental analysis covers 20 impact areas, ranging from aesthetics to wildfire. So all of these are covered in the EIR. The environmental impact report is structured starting with an introduction and summary, so just going over the project itself and a summary of the impacts. Then there's a more robust project description section that sets exactly what the project is, including the build out that will be used to analyze the environmental impacts. Then you dive into really the meat of the EIR, which includes a environmental setting, regulatory framework, potential impacts, mitigation measures for each topical area from the previous slide. There's also an alternatives and other impact section. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is a program EIR, which means it looks at a series of connected actions that will govern future activities instead of just a specific development proposal. Some milestones in the CEQA process started in September 2022 with the notice of preparation and the subsequent scoping meeting. After the public review period, the first public review period ended in October, we started preparing the draft EIR for the project. We completed that in March of this year. Then there was another public review period so the public could look through the draft EIR and submit comments. That comment period closed in April, and then we moved into preparing the final EIR, where we had the opportunity to make some revisions to the draft EIR based on the comments received. That was published a couple weeks ago on October 13th, and then the project and the EIR are tentatively scheduled to be heard by City Council on November 7th. Some quick context for this project. It's the 6th EIR prepared for that portion of American Canyon in the past 8 years, along with the other 5 on the screen. These past EIRs identified air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, biological resources, airport land use compatibility, traffic, and water supply as significant impacts. Talked about this here back in April, but the summary of the draft EIR, we evaluated all topical issue areas except for mineral resources and schools. Set forth 34 mitigation measures in the draft EIR, and all of those are available for review. I won't dive into the details on those, but they're to reduce impacts to the topical areas listed on the screen. The findings of the draft EIR were no significant and unavoidable impacts. There were some potentially significant impacts, and that's what the mitigation measures were for. So those were used to mitigate those potentially significant impacts to a less than significant level, or some topical areas didn't require mitigation at all. I won't dive into the alternatives too much, but we did evaluate 4 project alternatives. But as documented in the findings of fact, the city is not recommending the adoption of these alternatives. For the final EIR, we received 8 comment letters, both from public agencies, organizations, and individuals. Those are found in section 2 of the final EIR. And we did make some revisions to the draft EIR based on those comments received. That's in section 3. We strengthened some of the biological resources mitigation after consulting a letter from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, so made those mitigation measures more stringent and specific as well. Then we made some edits to mitigation measure GHG2, which is for the greenhouse gas emissions section, and those edits were regarding requirements for electrification of industrial and commercial equipment, so really ensuring that the project doesn't stop the state's progress towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. There was another change that wasn't based on a comment letter, but lowered the VMT threshold for significant impact to be 19% below existing conditions, which is more stringent than the previous 15%. And similarly, that's to meet state goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And these revisions did not result in significant new information or new impacts, and recirculation is not required. Finally, mitigation monitoring and reporting program accompanies the final EIR. So upon certification of the final EIR, the city would also adopt this MMRP. The MMRP purpose is to ensure that the mitigation measures in the EIR are implemented in a timely fashion and in accordance with all the terms of project approval. This MMRP is very specific about what the action required is, the timing, monitoring frequency, and responsible agency for implementing the mitigation measure. So Brent, do you want to take next steps?
I think we're almost done here.
Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, I think we're towards the end of our presentation just tonight. what's on the docket for the Planning Commission is to consider whether to recommend to the City Council certifying the environmental impact report, recommending the general plan amendment, and the pre-zoning and rezoning, and then also interested in your thoughts about the Zone D special development requirement. Assuming we have a decision from the Planning Commission tonight, this would move forward to the City Council at the November 7 meeting, where we'll have kind of a repeat of tonight's presentation and the same basic decisions at that meeting. So that's about it, and I think our city attorney is going to suggest that we take a recess.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners, staff, members of the public, I want to ensure that this presentation is fully available on Zoom, and if I could have about a 10-minute recess, I can confirm that. I think it's essential that we maintain the access of the public via that media method because of the way that this proceeding was noticed. So I would respectfully request a recess till, say, 10 of, with your indulgence.
I accept that we do a 10-minute recess to acknowledge the technical difficulties we're having on Zoom. Thank you. All right, I'd like to call the meeting back to order.
I think the city attorney asked me to start over again.
Okay, so, sure. Everyone buckle tight. No. Well, I appreciate everybody's patience and thank you for hanging tight. Mr. Cooper, any last remarks? before I
No,
open
that
up?
concludes my presentation.
Okay.
Glad to answer any questions you have.
Sounds good. We'll hold off on commissioner comments for now, and I'll go ahead and open up public comment. I got some speaker forms here, and I apologize if I read your name incorrectly, but I have here Al Norman. Yep, you want to come up to the table or the podium here? You got 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yep.
My name's Al Norman, and I'm associated with a property that's slightly north of the property in question. And I'm just kind of curious, how many of the board members have actually been to this Watson Lane area and actually have seen the properties there? Can you raise your hand of the numbers of people that have been there and know it quite well? Okay, so let's say there are 5 voting members, and we have 2 that have been there enough to know what the property is like. And I would just, I'd like to think that before you'd vote, you'd go there and look at the property and see how wide these roads are, and that they're not wide at all. In fact, 2 cars could, in most places, cannot get past one another. Somebody has to drive to the other side of the road for the cars to pass one another. So I would like to think that before you vote, you go there and you look at the properties, because you're making an impact on people that are there every day. And I've probably been on that property at least 10 times, because I go there to visit the property that I have. And I can definitely say that if you widen that road even to 2 lanes, you'll have kind of a problem, because the road is actually on the crest part of the hill, and it falls into a valley on the agricultural side of the road. So it's not really wideable, certainly not easily. Like I say, I think you have to go there and look at it before you vote. And do you feel comfortable voting on something like this that you've never seen? Just asking. If you've never seen it, are you really qualified to vote? Have we been presented enough information here to vote? Oh, is that
I
3
think
minutes?
I'm the city attorney. I'll comment on this. I'm familiar with the property view requirement, but I'd also emphasize the method of presentation, that you've seen tonight, and the documents, because what you get is you get a complete description of the property, you get a past history. What Mr. Cooper summarized is reflected in the text in the staff report. Yes, there are situations, for example, when property is condemned, where the trier of fact does go and view the property. I think 3 of the 4 commissioners raised their hands. I think it's a valid point. I think it's within the discretion of the commissioners, but under terms of CEQA and the integrated analysis that this unique proposal has before you, incorporating both land use law from the government code and provisions, as Mr. Cooper referenced several times, of Cortese Knox Hertzberg for this proposed annexation, and making the file complete while complying with the principal tenets of that act for the extension of municipal services are critical issues there. But I would say it's within the sound discretion of the commission as to whether you want to continue it so that you can have a site visit. Thank you.
I'll continue with public comment, and commissioners, please ponder upon what city attorney had mentioned. Next up, we have Ladera Ford.
Hi, it's Ladina Ford, and I'm here speaking on behalf of my parents, Les and Erlene Lawson, who are residents of Watson Lane. And I had a lot of comments, but a lot of my questions were answered, and I was very happy to hear that the alternatives that were in the environmental impact report are not going to be adopted by the city. That was our biggest concern. And so I just came up to say I don't have any comments. My sister Deanne signed up, and my dad also, and we no longer have comments. I'm very appreciative that you're not moving forward with widening Watson Lane. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hess Lawson? Okay. Okay. All right, and Yvonne?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Yvonne Baginski. I'm a resident of Napa County. I want to make just a few comments. In taking a look at the map of the property, which is actually a peninsula and not an island, it's 3 sides, not 4. I was taking a look at it and saying directly north of that is another 300 acres that's going to be developed, which is in effect going to totally destroy any green belt that's going to be up there surrounding American Canyon. So that currently is the green belt that will effectively destroy it all the way past the county line. Once that 300 acres on the Hess property gets developed, you will have a complete industrial warehouse sprawl going north. And my concern about this is warehouse sprawl is something that I don't believe that this would be of benefit to this community. Encouraging it by changing the zoning and making it industrial also has a horrible impact on the environment. And my questions to all of you is what is going to happen to all of the wildlife living on these properties and on these lands now? There are mitigations in place, and we all want to believe that these mitigations are going to work, but these mitigations are flawed. We've had numerous instances in this community where a mitigation was never followed through on or failed completely, and there's no consequence for that. A lot of the mitigations say, well, we have the Newell Conservation Area, or we have Lynch Canyon for these animals, and my comment is, well, my God, we're going to have a big crowd of animals living up there because they're going to have to take all of these lands and have all the animals go up there to live, and you know that's not even possible. My concern is with land use, that is what is impacting our wildlife. That's what we have to pay attention to. I'm asking that you all think about how to have wildlife space in this community, as well as the space for residential and industrial. Let's give our wildlife a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. All right, Charles Lehman.
Charles Lemon, 193 Watson Lane. I put my card in just in case there were any surprises so I could comment. And for a moment there, when I was listening to Brent's explanation of the Zone D compromise, I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to say something. But the explanation was very good, and I understand it's not the airport saying what we can and can't do with our property. It's a negotiation, and it sounds like Brent's got our back. So anyway, thank you for a wonderful hearing, and I learned a lot.
Thank you, Charles. All right, I'll go ahead and turn to Nicole. Do we have any comments online?
For those of you who are on Zoom, please raise your hand now if you would like to speak. Okay, I've got Terry McGrath. Just one moment, Mr. McGrath. I've asked you to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can.
I apologize for being remote, but the southbound traffic this evening from Napa was absolutely horrendous. As owner developer of Watson Ranch and owner of the Paoli property as part of the Paoli Watson Lane annexation, I appreciate you giving me a couple of minutes to chat here. One of the previous commenters made a statement about not following through on mitigation for state and federal permits. I've never seen a situation where that wasn't implemented. And as an example, in Watson Ranch, we're providing 300 acres to the land trust for mitigation for Watson Ranch. And as owner of the Paoli property, my expectation is that we will follow all the processes in EIR and CEQA once the property is actually annexed into the city, just like we did with Watson Ranch. I also think the property is an incredibly important piece to the puzzle of not only of American Canyon, but also of the entire county and region for providing the completion of the Newell Drive right-of-way from where it terminates today at the southern end of Watson Ranch all the way up to Green Island Road. It's an important piece to the Watson Ranch, to the city, and the county. And as an example tonight, I would be there tonight if that road existed. Another commenter made the segue to the Hess property. The issue tonight has nothing to do with the Hess property. The Paoli Watson Lane properties are inside of the urban limit line that was passed in 2008, and that runs through 2030. The Hess property is outside of that urban limit line and can only be changed by a voter initiative to change the existing urban limit line. So it's a very big stretch to connect this particular situation here this evening that's being discussed to the Hess property to the north. Again, thank you for allowing me a couple of minutes to speak, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Is there anybody else online who would like to speak? Please raise your hand now. Going once, twice. There are no additional speakers online.
All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment. I'll look to City Attorney for some words.
Commissioners, I'd like to comment just briefly. I may be, unfortunately, the only person in this room that can speak to issues of mitigation not being followed. And I can represent with some certainty that all mitigation measures impacting critical habitat, violations of the Federal Water Quality Act and implementing regulations of the State Water Quality Act have always been adhered to by the city. And in fact, the city's been in the rare position where it's cooperated with both state, local, and federal authorities in violating land users in the city, not associated with a permit, but functioning illegally to achieve compliance with both the state and federal Water Quality Act with resulting impacts on wildlife habitat. So those are matters that can be judicially noticed, but I think that's important for the record here. That would be my comment. It's both legal and factual.
Thank you, City Attorney. I will go ahead and seek to my planning commissioners on any comments. Starting over here. Wanna go last? Okay. I will seek to Commissioner Goff.
Sure, I'll be happy to. You know, we've been working on this for quite a while. It's been going on and exploring, and, you know, I think the city has done a very good job listening to everybody's opinions who are involved, really digesting the complexities of it all, and really holding true to the kind of the spirit of American Canyon when we look at annexing these properties back or into the city. I think that the city should be commended on the amount of work that they've done and the connections with the key stakeholders in the environment. I'm still a little confused around LAFCO and the airport and how that flows through there. I understand the items that you talked about at the end that were kind of there as frosting or sprinkles on top to entice that passing. But I do have, again, a little bit of concern about when the airport developed those rings. I know they're circular around the airport. How long ago were those designed, those zones? Was that when the airport was actually constructed? Or?
If I remember correctly, I think the current plan dates back to 1983, and that's the one they're currently revising. And that may be off by a year.
Yeah.
Roughly the Zone D. And they are the Airport Land Use Commission are in the process of revising that. And it's based on very competent consulted information, much of which the city furnished in conjunction with the Oak Hill issue. I'm pretty sure it's, 1994.
I think maybe the first one was 83 and then 94. It's been a long time, and it's outdated. What I've learned is the much of the zones that are there don't reflect current or future proposed operations at the airport, and therefore the calculations for where they would go based upon current information would adjust them.
That's why they're looking at adjusting them for the dynamics they want to make that airport.
Adjusting, maybe they're considering not necessarily adjusting the boundaries, but perhaps some of the rules within the boundaries that are there. There's a variety of ways in which it could go.
So those circles, they're A, B, C, D. Is there legislation that determines the size? And because I mean, I can go to airports and there's houses virtually at the end of runways. So that's why I'm a little curious on how those are laid out.
It's a fascinating topic. It might be one that we could bring back to the commission. I'm learning a little bit myself about that. The calculations are driven by Caltrans Aeronautics because all of the airports in California have these plans, and so there is a body of law. But there's also latitude locally for decision-making on where they go. So it's kind of a combination of both. And there are some situations where you have old situations where maybe the rules might say it's one thing, but because the houses have been there a long time, it's another rule. So I only know enough to know it's complicated.
And I'm just curious, the residents out on Watson Lane at this point in time, it's currently county land. Do they have full services, sewer, water?
The area is within the city's service area for water and sewer, but I'll let our Public Works Director discuss that.
That's a great idea.
Good evening, Planning Commission, City of American Canyon Community. Erica Almond-Smiley's Public Works Director. We do have water service out there in the area now. In fact, we got a will serve letter or application in the past week for a meter for connection to an existing parcel out there that is getting an approved house permit, I believe. However, we don't have sewer out to that location yet, so that would be a future project or master plan update if sewer is to be extended out to that area to
Just
serve.
down Watson Lane, is there's sewer out on the?
Green Island Road.
On Green Island, okay. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that was the last comment I had. I was just curious about the airport and those rings, because I know I fly into airports, and there's houses we're flying over.
Right. And Commissioner Goff, just maybe to answer one of your questions, before the city council can approve the pre-zoning, it does need to go to the Airport Land Use Commission for determination. And our plan is, if we're move forward from tonight, it would go to the city council for first reading on November 7, but before the final reading could occur, for the general plan and the zoning, it would need to get a determination from the Airport Land Use Commission.
Okay, thank you.
And then following that, there's some other prerequisites that we need to assemble to perfect our package to the Napa County LAFCO agency for annexation.
More sprinkles?
A few more.
Okay, thank you.
What are those sprinkles?
One of them is a property tax sharing agreement.
Okay.
Chair Malari?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath has raised his hand again, so at your discretion, when you're ready, just let me know if you'd like me to unmute him.
Okay, thank you. Youth Commissioner DeAndre, do you have any comments? No. Opening? Okay. Have you ever been down to that area?
No, but I'll plan to go down there.
Okay, okay. Just sometimes it's a good time to just get lost in our city. You'll always find a lot of nice hikes and just pockets of serenity. Yeah, yeah. All right, I'll turn my head this way. Okay. You okay with that?
I'll just make
Vice
a
Chair?
quick comment here,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Cruz. So first of all, Mr. Norman, thank you for your comment. Are you by the Quinlan's tire area? Sort of, kind of, no? Okay, I do. I'm kind of familiar with your area, and thank you for that comment. And they are narrow roads. But talking about the annexation and rezoning of the area, one thing I've noticed is that we have to justify why we go from like agriculture to light industrial, residential, and so forth. And some of the things that I've read here is, one, it has to make sense, right? Generating more in tax revenues that are consumed by the city expenditures, extend Newell Drive, and so forth. But one thing that resonated with me is promote public safety, because now that we're going to build a bigger space, how are we going to incorporate these security measures? How will it be implemented? Will it be taken over by the county, by the sheriff's office, or will we have our PD? Will we be hiring more people? That resonates to me. How will we be constructing that safety protocol when this is built out? That's all.
Yeah, the Environmental Impact Report does consider public services, and PD was consulted. And what's nice about the way American Canyon conducts its police force, the city contracts with Napa County Sheriff, which gives the city the ability to scale up as needed through regular contract updates. And so that's kind of the system we have, and it's worked very well.
Great. Thank you, Brent.
Commissioner Mohaib.
So thank you for your presentation, your comprehensive presentation, Mr. Cooper. For the residents of Watson Lane, thank you so much for being here, for your written and oral comments. I read every letter. I wholeheartedly support the objectives of this proposed Paoli-Watson Lane annexation. It says here to improve transportation network within the city, to alleviate congestion and enhance the quality of life for the community, right? So that's why we're doing this. Also, being new on the Planning Commission, I watch the city council meetings on Zoom just so that I can see the follow-through, what we voted to go to city council, how do they handle it, what the outcome is, and then, or what they're planning on bringing to us, and, you know, vice versa. But there was a presentation on September 19th, I think. On September 19th. That concerning the proposed general draft plan and a recommendation not to consider as study areas for draft general plan land use element areas outside the urban limit line, including the Green Island property as well as the Hess property. So given the coordination between the land use element and the circulation element, which is yet to be considered by City Council, I would like this matter to come back to the commission, and that it would make sense to consider planning for both the Green Island property and the Hess property area, recognizing that they're outside the city limits and the sphere of influence to the city. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Those are, just to acknowledge the comments, those are two separate comments, but I will go ahead and ensure that this gets noted and recorded. I'm curious, how many residents are living up in Watson Lane? I know you, Charles.
Yeah, I don't have a number. I think it's under 100, but I'd be guessing. There's 13 parcels.
So it's a great neighborhood, great community. Everyone knows each other, but we don't know how many residents are in that area.
Okay, for purposes of LAFCO, it's either uninhabited or inhabited is more than 14, so I know there's more than 14.
Thank you, City Attorney. Okay, all right. I'll go ahead and close commissioner comments for right now and open up public comment. I hear we got somebody on Zoom that'd like to add a few more minutes.
Mr. McGrath, I am going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Thanks for letting me chat again for just a couple of minutes. So let me put this in context. Commissioner Goff, you asked the question, or you made the statement about LAFCO being confusing. It's one of the most Byzantine processes you'll ever engage in. But let me try to simplify this because I was one of the architects of the urban limit line in 07 and 08. So that was an agreement between the city, county, and myself as the owner of Watson Ranch to put in place the urban limit line. Think of the urban limit line that goes through 2030 as essentially an iron curtain. So anything outside of that is essentially not eligible for annexation into the city. Not only is it not in the sphere of influence, it's not within the urban limit line. So the commissioner comment recently about let's open this up to Green Island Road and Hess Vineyards. Both of those are outside of the urban limit line. The urban limit line was voted on in 2008 in the city of American Canyon to establish this through 2030. So it is you're mixing your apples and peanut butter. They are completely different contexts. Second comment is the most important thing about Paoli, Lane, Watson annexation is the fact that it gives the city sovereignty over traffic. It gives you the ability to finish the Newell Drive from the existing terminus today all the way to Green Island Road. So everything from alleviating traffic to schools in the morning to providing police, fire, EMS access when 29 is closed, like tonight, it gives you sovereignty over this. So the most important thing beyond everything else is allowing this to be annexed, giving it zoning, providing an EIR, a specific plan, gives you the final 1/3 of the right-of-way to Newell Drive. And this concept dates back to 2006. That's how long this has been on the table. So I encourage you tonight, don't complicate this issue. Focus on what's on this table, because this is inside of the urban limit line. And this is within your purview to push and approve and move to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Since public comment is open, do we have anyone else? Nicole?
Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand now. There's no one on Zoom. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak on this item? There appears to be no additional public comment, Chair Malari.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close public comment. Commissioners, we have 3 items here for consideration. I seek to you guys if there's any additional comments, questions that you may have for our city attorney, Director Cooper, that we can address tonight, or a nomination on the floor to proceed or not.
I have one question.
Sure.
And it's related to pre-zoning and the transition into zoning. Is there a process, or is it just automatic once it's just like, poof, we're zoned?
It's poof.
There's not an approval or a re-examination?
Just a term of art. It's pre-zoning refers to zoning before it's annexed, and then once the property's annexed, the zoning graduates to zoning.
Promotes. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, Director Cooper, I just want to appreciate and thank you for the very thorough presentation. I think that for those that have never been to that side of the area with Watson Lane, I mean, it's beautiful. I've actually, when I was on maternity leave with my second one, I would actually have my husband drop me off there and just kind of walk and just be in peace. I was going through a lot of postpartum and things, and that space was just so calming and serene to me. Just never thought these pockets of areas here in American Canyon existed. So I truly appreciate the residents that are there. And I, like Director Cooper had mentioned, this is not the one-stop end-all of the process. And we put ourselves in this position because we care a lot about our community and the development of it. I think that we would be fools to not participate in this public hearing and comments, and just wanting to ensure that we're trying to do our very best for our residents, for the growth of the city, and also just educating ourselves on what we don't know, especially here with the EIR and all the other things that now I want to just teach myself on. But it's very difficult, I'd like to say, but I am dedicated to ensuring that we're going to do our very best to be responsible in developing and caring for the city of American Canyon that we live in. And I appreciate everybody's comments. I appreciate the time that we've spent here, especially during the break. And I seek to guidance from our commissioners on the next steps.
All right, I'll give a shot on one of the resolutions. So I'll make a motion, Resolution 1. That's a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, recommending the City Council of the City of American Canyon certify the Paoli Watson Lane Annexation Project Final Environmental Impact Report, SCH 2022090097, adopt sequel findings of fact, and adopt a mitigation monitoring and reporting program approximately 83 acres located within the city of American Canyon sphere of influence in unincorporated Napa County, and approximately 3 acres in the city of American Canyon east of SR 29. Shall I continue? Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Nicole, may you get roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Altman is absent. Commissioner Goff?
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Aye.
Vice Chair Cruz?
Aye.
Chair Malari?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, recommending that the City Council and the City of American Canyon approve a general plan amendment for the Paoli Watson Lane annexation project for the land currently designated agriculture to industrial and residential estate, approximately 83 acres located within the City of American Canyon sphere of influence in unincorporated Napa County.
I second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Altman is absent. Commissioner Goff?
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Nay.
Okay. Vice Chair Cruz?
Aye.
And Chair Malari?
Aye. All right, and we have the last resolution here.
I'll do that one. I recommend that the City of American Canyon, consider the resolution to recommend to the City Council a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, recommending the City Council of the City of American Canyon approve pre-zoning from agricultural to Paoli Light Industrial, Paoli Commercial Overlay District, residential estate, and railroad right-of-way for the Paoli Watson Lane annexation project, approximately 83 acres located within the City of American Canyon sphere of influence in unincorporated Napa County, East State Route 29, and Paoli Loop Road, and an approximately 3-acre rezoning within the City of American Canyon between 29 and SR 29 and Paoli Loop Road from light industrial to Paoli light industrial with a Paoli commercial overlay district.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Altman is absent. Commissioner Goff?
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Aye.
Vice Chair Cruz?
Aye.
Chair Malari?
Aye.
Madam Chair, Commission members, I also think based on Mr. Cooper's recommendation, you want to have an additional recommendation that
Oh, with the little sprinkle on the top for zone D.
that would basically be, it's going to be the wording that was that's on the PowerPoint entitled Proposed Residential Zoning Compromise in Zone D. And that sets forth the indication of what would be utilized to meet the concerns of the ALUC. So it would be that actually in conjunction with the next slide. So proposed residential zoning compromise in Zone D. So I think it would be appropriate for the commission to indicate that related to the adoption of the third resolution would be an additional recommendation consistent with Mr. Cooper's summary in the staff report as just described, which details the concerns of the ALUC and sets forth a methodology then with respect to the pre-zoning that you just authorized. Want me to phrase it specifically?
Please.
Okay. It would be, there would be an additional recommendation of the Planning Commission related to resolution number 3 adopted concerning the Watson Lane Paoli Loop project, specifically that there will be special development requirements for the RE zoning district on Watson Lane and Paoli Loop, one, proposed subdivision that create additional residential lots within RE zoning district on Watson Lane and Paoli Loop shall be subject to review by the Napa Airport Land Use Commission prior to final action by the City of American Canyon. 2, this special development requirement shall not apply to any of the following situations. A, subdivisions that do not create an additional residential lot, i.e. lot line adjustments, close parens. B, properties on Watson Lane or Paoli Loop without RE zoning. C, residential development pursuant to state law. You know, the reference is to SB 9. And D, properties on Watson Lane on Paoli Loop Road that are not located on the Napa Airport Land Use Compatibility Zone D. And along with that, in other words, new subdivisions would receive ALUC input regarding airport operations, health, and safety concerns. No significant change to the city's authority to approve, deny, or modify the subdivisions. So that would be the clarification additional resolution.
All right, I'll give it a shot. I'd like to make an amendment to resolution number 3.
I think a supplement.
Supplement.
Additional.
Okay. Can we go back to the prior screen, please? That in addition to that supplement, that we propose a special development requirements for the rezoning district on Watson Lane and Paoli Loop. 1, proposed subdivision that create additional residential lots within the rezoning district on Watson Lane and Paoli Loop shall be subject to review by the Napa Airport Land Use Commission prior to the final action by the City of American Canyon. Number 2, this special development requirement shall not apply to any of the following situations. A, subdivisions that do not create additional residential lots, i.e. lot line adjustment. B, properties on Watson Lane or Paoli Loop without rezoning. C, residential development pursuant to state law, i.e. SB 9. And D, properties on Watson Lane or Paoli Loop that are not located in Napa Airport Land Use Compatibility Zone D. Also, new divisions would receive ALUC input regarding airport operations, health, and safety concerns. No significant change to the city's authority to approve, deny, or modify the subdivision.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Altman is absent. Commissioner Goff?
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Aye.
Vice Chair Cruz?
Aye.
Chair Malari?
Aye. Okay. Moving right along to Mr. Cooper. Active planning projects.
Part of the meeting that I know we all enjoy. It's a review of the active projects going on in the Food Development Department. And we have 11 pages here. I won't go through all of them. Just some of the highlights from along that as well. The city is processing a design permit for the Napa River Ecology Center, very exciting project that would convert the brookyard and the wetlands edge to an ecology center, very exciting.
See, there have our new signage up in compliance
Yes,
to
that's
the
right, and
code, yeah.
thank you, Planning Commission. You may have noticed that we took your advice, and we had experts look at it, pared back the scope of what information's there so that it's more easily viewed from a distance and from a car to get your attention. I hope you're happy with the outcome.
QR code on it.
And we have QR code, so, yeah, we had people who really knew what they were doing. Technical edges and apart from the, the big picture vision, the folks that really know how to make these things work right. So it really sings. Really proud of that. In addition to the update I have here for you, the Open Space, Active Transportation, and Sustainability Commission will be reviewing the Ecology Center on November 1st. And this will come to the Planning Commission.
Your mic's off.
This will come to the Planning Commission after the Open Space, I have to say it again, Active Transportation and Sustainability Commission reviews the project on November 1st. Thank you. The paintball jungle, this was, is working out very well. There have been very good discussions between paintball jungle and the school district, and they're solving things between them, so which is the way we all like to see things happen. Private issues handled privately, and then we'll bring that solution to you. I think perhaps, I don't know if we're ready for the November meeting. Most likely. Is that William? Yeah, and the November meeting, of course, is earlier than our normal sequence. It's the third Thursday in November, so that we don't come on Thanksgiving.
I was going to say I'm not coming, but okay.
Yeah, we thought of that.
Good job.
The SDG 220, this is a third warehouse on Commerce Court. We have our application for that. It's a conditional use permit that will come to the Planning Commission. On this project, we'll have an environmental impact report prepared. And so the notice of preparation, which is the first milestone, is going to be published tomorrow. So that's a very nice milestone to move that forward. There are 3 on the west side of Commerce Court. This first one's built, second one's under construction. This is the third and final one by that particular property owner. Let's see. The only other active project we have to really update you on is 5555 Broadway. There's a warehouse on the north side of town, on the west side of the highway. They had initially submitted an application to have outdoor storage. They've withdrawn that request and have decided to pare their request down to aesthetic improvements to the building, and that was approved by staff on October 20. So we'll be able to see some nice paint and signs and kind of freshen up the building. They may revisit the outdoor storage at some point in the future, but just not right now. And then we have many pages of development that's ongoing. A lot of work going on Oat Hill, as you might notice. We have many permits that's being processed for that right now. And we had a meeting with them yesterday, and they informed us that they're hoping to begin construction early in the new year. So they're moving very aggressively. Mm-hmm. That project in Oat Hill is 291 multifamily apartments.
Is there any exploration into making this a straight through?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, it's on the general plan, and it's a condition of approval for the project. So they'll be funding extension of Napa Junction Road for that missing segment there between Teresa and Hess Road, as well as, I think, repaving and sidewalks, and it's going to be like a for real street. So this are really just ongoing occupancies happening in Watson Ranch, and some of the buildings in the Harvest subdivision that back up onto Napa Junction Road have a special architectural treatment that the Planning Commission approved. And these are kind of really the first ones where you're really going to see it. So William was just showing me that today. And so if you have some time to head out to Watson Ranch, you can see that. On Lemos Point, there's a veterans preference policy, and where they have about 2,000 people on an interest list. And we're making extra efforts to ensure that we're reaching out to our veterans community. And so if you're a veteran or know somebody who might be interested, if you're low income, to please contact me, and I can get you in touch with the developer. We're making sure that we have a list of veterans who would be able to live in the Fran Lemos Point apartments. We're very proud of there in Watson Ranch. They are getting very close, yes. So it's really time now to vet the different applicants. And so that's kind of my summary there for you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Cooper? No? Okay. All right. Do you have any commissioner items? Commissioner Gall. You do not? Oh, okay. All right. Well, if we don't have any commissioner items, I want to thank you guys all for remaining here until the very end, and meeting adjourned.